in the car, driving. What is new? Really nothing. Nothing is new. We're sitting here today just kind of talking about how it has been a few days since we've been on here, and we wanted to just come back on, and we kind of were talking about what subject or something we thought would interest you guys for our next Rumble Strip Ramble. And we realized that we forgot to mention the other day that we just celebrated our second anniversary of our second location. So we've been in business since 2013. We had the one location for 5 years, and then we opened our second location 2 years ago on April 1st. Crazy. I can't believe it's been 2 years.
It goes so fast.
You just blink.
So
I
fast.
swear. The days are long and the years are short. That saying is more true than I would like it to be. But that kind of led into us just talking about ideas for a chat with you guys. And one of the things that I thought of that might be kind of fun, because I know a few of you that follow our channel already do have a coffee shop or are in the process of opening one or dreaming of it. And those that have a coffee shop have thought about a second one, because I know it was on our minds as well. And I always wondered what that transition would be like going from 1 to 2. And so I thought we could just kind of have an off-the-cuff conversation about what things we learned, some good lessons, some expectations, or tips and tricks we have for you guys to go from having just one location to multiple locations. And hopefully, as always, that this information will be really helpful. What do you think for you was like the biggest learning lesson? Well, okay, I guess let's start with this. As you guys have probably heard in our past videos, Casey is the guy who has to do all of our, well, he doesn't have to, but he's so good at it and he takes it on. All of the permits and the process of going through like the city and the county and the state to get us all of that kind of stuff. So would you say that the second one, you probably had a leg up because you felt like you'd already done it once, so you probably knew a little bit more. But is there anything with getting a second one that you feel like was a good lesson?
Yeah, the second one was more challenging because the first one, since technically it's a temporary building, I mean, we're hooked up to city water and sewer and power, but the building is like a temporary building, kind of like a mobile home. And so we didn't have to go through the Idaho Transportation Department, which is our state highway group, to get it approved. The second one, which is also technically on a state highway, even though it's in the middle of town, is also on a highway technically. So we have to go through, with it being a permanent structure, we had to go through a lot more troubles to get access onto the property. And yeah, it was more challenging. But with the city, it was probably pretty close to the same process. And the city wasn't too difficult at all to work with. In the beginning, they were a little bit, but you know, in the end, we had some challenges with our property. Our property technically is in a floodplain, so we had to do some building up of our lot to make it taller.
Our second building looks like it's on a mountain, which is like kind of cool because it makes the building feel bigger. But when people have to drive through our drive-through, they actually have to go up a little hill, which is a little weird, but we made it work just because of that floodplain restriction and what you have to do to build on that.
Things that people don't think about too is when you buy a vacant dirt lot and you want to put a permanent commercial building on it, you have to be able to retain your on-site water. So when you put a building on the property, obviously rainwater can't soak through that portion of the soil, and then you pave the whole thing and water can't go through that either. So you have to, you know, all your water when it rains has to go somewhere, and most cities aren't going to allow you to, you know, funnel all of your storm water out into the street. So you have to make it to where your parking lot is angled and sloped in a way that your water runs off into what's called a swale. And they're just these big holes that are filled with like river rock. You probably, you know, see them all the time. You don't really notice them. Or
sometimes people put like landscaping and stuff in them too. Businesses do. So
like
then
grass, like tall
you don't
grasses.
know that's what its purpose is. I feel like I never noticed them until we had to put it in, and then I was like, oh, those people have a swale there.
Yeah, or you'll go to like parking lots and you'll notice like there'll be little islands where there's trees in the middle of the parking lot with cuts in the curb where water can funnel into them, and so that's how water drains off the property. If you don't have it set up that way, your property will just flood, with all the rainwater. So that was a challenge for us. It didn't help, that we were in a floodplain. That also added to our cost. We didn't think it would be as expensive as it was, but that's how most of this journey will go for you.
Yeah.
Is whatever you think it's going to cost, it never comes in less.
It's always almost double.
more.
Yeah.
And so we
And
tell
at
you
the
guys all the
time
time.
you think it's going to take, double it. I mean, not always. Obviously, there are abnormals.
You never hear of someone that's like, oh, we built a brand new house, and it got done in half the time we thought it would, and it cost us less than what we thought. Like, things always come up, and the contractor might come to you and say, hey, would you have the space? Do you want to maybe add in this little extra room? It wouldn't cost that much extra, maybe $5,000 more, and you can have all this extra space. And you're like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And that stuff just adds up. And then
you got to pick out tile, and your budget was $1 per square foot, and you end up falling in love with the $5 per square foot tile, or just little stuff like that adds up.
There's ways to trim. There's certain things you can cut and trim, but then you do that so many times, and now your building looks very, very vanilla, very boring.
And it's a big investment, so you want to do it right the first time, obviously, because then you don't want to have to be constantly redoing it. I guess if we kind of on that subject, what are some things that you've learned about the second building that you wish you would have changed? Like, if you could redo the second shop. Obviously, our first shop, if you guys know our journey, and I'll recap really quick if you don't, we came into this with very little knowledge, and so our first building, we had no running water. We kind of winged it, if you will, and we did our best, but then we had to replace that building 2 years later because we realized we made a lot of mistakes. So then when we opened this second one, but I guess technically third building we've done, we were like, oh, we got this. We're gonna nail it. So I guess, what are some things that you've noticed from a construction side, since that's kind of your specialty, that we did right and things that we did wrong?
I would say the building size. We built the building. We bought a half acre. It was a little bit bigger than a half acre. When you build a parking lot like that and you engineer it with a drive-through and you have a lobby, you have to have so many parking spaces, and so that eats up a lot of your parking lot. And so does a trash dumpster.
And a storage building for us because we had to.
You get really good at fitting things and making the most out of the space. Our building is only 1,200 square feet. I wish it was bigger, but we physically could not make it any wider, or else we would have had no outdoor patio seating. And if we would have made it longer, we wouldn't have had a drive-through, because you need enough room for cars to fully get around, and you need an exit lane. If someone's in line and they don't want to be in line anymore, they want to leave. So things that a lot of people don't think about, including myself. I didn't think about a lot of it, but that's how you learn. Is if you force yourself to at least go through the process to learn, you're going to know so much more than you ever did before. With the building, in the inside, we found that, corners of countertops and corners of cabinets are the worst.
Oh, they're so frustrating.
And if you look in your house, if you have a countertop in your house that makes a 90-degree corner, that corner, it's so hard to put something in that corner.
Yeah.
It's just dead space, and everything under that cabinet is extremely dead space. And so a lot of things that we're running to, like our espresso machine, our ice maker, you put it somewhere, but there's plumbing that has to go somewhere with it. And a lot of times, you think, oh, I'll put something in that cabinet. Oh, there's plumbing going into that cabinet. Or, things, it's so difficult to piece it all together perfectly. And our ice maker isn't in a great spot. We couldn't move it now. There's no way we'll ever be able to move it due to the design. But in a perfect world, I would make the ice maker to where you could, walk. Ours is kind of on the edge of a corner, and so when you're back there getting ice and someone's off to your left making drinks, it becomes a really big traffic jam. We get employees kind of bumping into each other a lot right there, and it's just kind of like a funnel of problems.
Yeah.
So,
but it's hard because it's this is where I wouldn't say, because Casey was the one who kind of did the initial layout, and then us as baristas came in and said, what about this? What about this? But what Casey, to his argument, is that there are specific places that plumbing couldn't go, you know, and so we had to figure out, and we were trying to utilize as much space as possible with what we had in the work area. And so how we have it set up is, imagine an L shape, and the ice maker is in the corner, and then right next to the ice maker we have what we call like our wet bar, so that we have our blenders, we have our frappe powders, and then there's a refrigerator underneath that countertop, and that has all of our Red Bulls and smoothie mixes and like some milks and stuff that we use for the frappes. Well, so let's say like after school rush, this is a time where that corner becomes a disaster zone. All of the kids that come in our after school rush love to get Red Bulls, smoothies, Italian sodas, and frappes. Those are like their favorite drinks. Maybe in the winter you'll get a few hot chocolates, but honestly the kids really enjoy those kind of like fruity, fun drinks. And so what happens is, when every single order is one of those drinks, all of the drinks are trying to get made in that one little corner, and you're trying to grab ice and grab the Red Bull from underneath the counter and grab a blender from up above. There's like 3 or 4 of us stuck in that little corner waiting for the person to move so that we can get our turn to get in there. So like Casey said, it would have been better if we did like countertop, ice maker, countertop, so that you could be making drinks on both sides, and then you just kind of come in the middle to the ice maker. But with the space we had, with the knowledge we had at the time, and with the constrictions on where we needed plumbing and stuff, that's where the ice maker needed to go. So it's there, and that's that, where you just have to work around it. But it's always good lessons. Like I always say, you know, well, our next one, we'll know better for that one. And I'm sure we're going to make mistakes on our next one too, where we're like, dang it, if only we would have put this here, or if we could change this about it. It'll never be perfect, but I just love talking through these things that I think we did right and we did wrong, because then I think it gives people a better idea when you're building your own shop. Learn from our mistakes.
Something else, like probably our biggest mistake we made, and I don't know, people maybe watching this are like, how does that even happen? But it did. It happened to us. We didn't realize until literally right before we opened, like a week before. We didn't know where we were going to put all of our trash cans.
Yeah.
And so you're we're like, hey, we need some trash cans. You know, well, where are we going to put them? Like, you can't put them in the middle of the floor. You know, I mean, there's only so much space, and so we made it work, but it was definitely something that we should have thought about.
I feel like it's that little stuff, yeah. Like people always talk about when you build a house, you know, it's always the littlest things that you forget about. I'm sorry, I was just going like this to your face. It's the littlest things you forget about, but it's those things that actually make it the most frustrating to live in. And like Casey said, trash bins. Like, why did we not think of that? Knock boxes. So when you're preparing espresso, you need to knock your puck out of your portafilter.
If you have a real espresso machine.
Yes, that's
like
true.
Do.
Yes. I guess some
people have like
don't.
full auto espresso machines, which are not real.
That's a video for a different day. But if you have a portafilter and you're knocking your puck out, you typically will want what's called a knock box, which is just like a metal box with a rubber kind of round hard hose, and you smack your portafilter on that so that the puck can come out. Well, how we've always done it, and what honestly pretty much every coffee shop I've ever seen will do, is that they will drill a hole in their countertop for the knock box and set the knock box in that, and then below that you would have a trash can, and that's where all your pucks would go. Well, we completely, I think like a month before you caught it, and you were like, oh my gosh, before they put in these countertops, we need knock boxes like cut into.
Well, because we did a quartz stone countertop, you know, it's rock. So it's not like you can just cut into it like a Formica or something like that. I mean, it takes some serious tools. And you also, when you have your countertops done at the factory, they can cut perfect holes, like with, you know, I don't know whether they cut them with laser or water jet or however they cut that granite or stone, but it's a perfect smooth circle when they do it, and when you have to do it afterwards, it's never going to look very good. So
plus we had to make room in the cabinetry for those trash cans for the knock boxes, and we needed like really specific kind of sized.
Well, it's like a dead space
cans
under, so you hit it you hit the knockbox that's on the counter, the puck falls through underneath the counter, and there's a trash can that you have lined up under it. But what people do, including us, is they may like have a under-counter refrigerator that goes there, and then you're like, oh crap, our refrigerator is, if we smack the puck, it'll fall through the counter and land on top of the under-counter fridge, or oh, now there's a cabinet there with a door in the way, or there's so many things to think about. And many people think about their countertop space, but they don't think about what has to go under the countertop, and that includes your plumbing and other things like that. So it's just something that it's worth taking the extra time and making sure that you do it correctly the first time.
So I feel like something we did right, and I would suggest this to everyone, is we did a polished concrete floor. And that has been so nice, because in our first little shack we did, what was it, linoleum?
We did, it's like
a vinyl, no, linoleum?
No, I think it's called vinyl flooring. It's like it comes in a big roll.
Hard plastic flooring, someone
kind of a rubbery.
Yeah, and we did.
You'd see like in a cheap apartment,
or like a laundry room.
They do make nice. We have some in our house actually. It's actually really nice. They do make nice stuff, but
we couldn't afford it.
The stuff we put in was great.
It was. It was the best we could afford at the time. In fact, I think that we just asked them for like scraps that they had for someone's like house, and they gave us some options.
Well, our room was like 12 by 22, so it didn't cost much. Material. It was like doing like a laundry room size, because our first coffee shop wasn't very big.
Yeah. So. And that floor, so like one of the things that happened to us, and it was no one's fault, no one thought about it, but when we were getting deliveries in, they would take the crates and they would kind of rock them back and forth to bring them in, because they were heavy and tall, and it was cutting little divots in all of our flooring. And then it's a coffee shop, so spills were happening all the time. If you think that you're not going to spill, you're wrong, you will. And spills were happening. Well, then because we were cut so many holes in the floor, it was allowing water underneath the floor, and then that was weakening the wood that was underneath it. So that was a big oops for us. So if you can do concrete flooring, that has been a lifesaver. It's easy to mop. It's easy to mop with like a cleaning solution, and
it's like a polished concrete floor, and it takes
so nice.
Like no maintenance.
Yeah, and it looks great too. It's very like aesthetic for kind of what's in these days, and
it's kind of like an industrial kind of look, I don't know. You'll see a lot of restaurants doing it now, because you don't have to ever worry about replacing your flooring, and it's a lot more affordable, because they're already pouring your slab anyway. So
if they have to pour your foundation, may as well just add your floor to it while you're there, and then just polish it. Something I feel like we did wrong, something that we kind of already were hesitant going into it, but now for sure our next building never will. We will never do cabinetry ever again. Maybe one cabinet that's like
an upper cabinet, like above a sink or something,
or like one administrative cabinet that we would use, because we do have like a drawer that we put like gift cards and stuff in, and I think that something like that, like one
paperwork,
one drawer wouldn't be awful, but having like where the syrups and stuff are and having cabinetry, coffee is just very wet. There's just constantly moisture, and having any type of wood cabinetry, unless it is like solid wood, but even that, it's so tough. We did what are those cabinets called? I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's basically like particle board cabinetry.
It's like your standard cabinet, but it's got a hard, like,
there's
color
a name for
panel on it, but
can't remember. And it's like it was an upgrade, It was like we talked about it. We're like, okay, this will be better, this will be good, but even still to this day, it's been 2 years, they're starting to show some wear and tear, and I just wish we could just rip them all out and instead go with like a stainless steel kind of open concept. So there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, if we go with something like that, then our customers through the window will be able to see everything, which holds us accountable to keeping it all really organized and clean, and if there is a spill, taking care of it pretty immediately. Where right now, because we did black cabinetry, it does kind of hide some of that stuff, but it's just one of those things that like we just know inevitably by going the route we did that probably 5 to 7 years that we will be needing to look up another solution or do some type
is all stainless. It's all metal. Because, you spill stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And you spill stuff on metal, you just wipe it off, especially like on stainless or something like that. But when you've got any sort of a wood cabinetry in a business that deals with a lot of moisture, we make drinks. Just like McDonald's, there's a lot of ice, a lot of things are going to spill, things are going to get in places you don't want it to, and unfortunately we just didn't really think about that all that well.
So I guess those are some like really good pros and cons as far as like the building side of it, and some good lessons that we have learned on the construction side. And kind of getting into like my specialty of things with the administrative side of things. One thing that I think we did really well is that leading into having two shops, we had already started to really perfect our operations manual. So when new employees start, we have a handbook that goes over all of our policies and procedures. Also goes over kind of the legal stuff, like how we handle discrimination or anything like that. So we already had that in place. We had a training manual in place, but we have since updated it, and actually we will be updating that probably forever, because we just keep learning new and improved ways to handle things. We also have changed some of our recipes over time, or changed how we make drinks, so we constantly have to be updating that. I'm trying to think of what else. We've also been working kind of on our point of sale. I would say that was a kind of a big change, is that we had switched over to a cloud-based point of sale by the time that we opened the second shop. And what's nice about a cloud-based point of sale is that when you're ready to open a new location, typically you have to pay a fee per terminal. So we just had to pay the fee for the new terminal. We went to Costco and bought an iPad, and then all we had to do was log into the app, download the app and log into it, and our menu and everything about it was already there, which was so nice, because the first point of sale system we ever did was a hand-me-down from my parents, which was awesome. I mean, I love those stories, because that's truly how we started. And it was a point of sale that was built by QuickBooks. It was old. It was a computer screen, and it was like the tower, the actual monitor and tower, and you had to import your entire menu. So you had to put, this was the item, this is how much it is, and tax and all of that into it. But if something would have happened to that computer, let's say that our computer had died, or someone broke in and ruined it or stole it or damaged it, anything, we would have lost our entire menu system. We would have had to completely start over. And so even today, like let's say that the iPad gets knocked off the counter and shatters or something, we're not out our point of sale system. We would just have to quickly go purchase a new iPad, log in, and it would be good to go. So that was something that I'm glad that we had handled beforehand and got that kind of situated.
Yeah, you got to kind of you got to keep up with trends and new things. I mean, when we opened our first coffee shop, Uber Eats and DoorDash, these services weren't a thing. And so now you'll notice a lot of businesses, even bigger companies like Panda Express or McDonald's or whatever, if they allow or offer these Uber Eats type services, they now have a whole system in place for it. And so, we don't currently have that, but we're just at this point where we're always trying to keep up with the trend and keep up with new things. We started our coffee shop, and like ordering on your phone and going and picking up your order was not a thing when we started, but now it is.
Yeah.
And it's becoming much more of a common thing that more people are starting to have that. So when you want to keep up with that, you have to make sure that your point of sale can support that platform. And it may involve changing point of sale companies, and there's certain point of sale companies that specialize more toward retail. There's some that specialize in restaurants, so it's trying to find that one that'll work well for your type of business. And you have to ask yourself, in 5 years, we're going to want to be able to offer all of these services. Is this point of sale going to be able to do that? And if not, then you may want to look into something different, or else you're going to be switching.
Like when we first started, we didn't have gift cards. We had gift certificates because we were new, and it, just wasn't really like a thing. And so we had printed out gift certificates that we hand wrote for each customer. And then finally we were like, you know what, it'd be kind of cool if we could offer like a reloadable gift card. And so then we had to go down that route, and like that included like a different fee on our card processing system, and we had to buy the cards. And so it's just like growing pains as you adapt to new, just like Casey said, new systems or new opportunities that come up. Like how we said, especially during COVID, like I feel like everything pivoted. We all had to try different things. Certain people who had didn't have a drive-through window had to adapt to keep their coffee shops open by creating like a walk-up window or a call-ahead system or a delivery system that they'd never had before. So finding something beforehand, a point-of-sale system, and I'm not saying you can't switch. Obviously, we switched, and we're actually in the process of switching to a new one again. So it's not that you can't switch. It's just it takes a lot of work to switch, just because you are rebuilding your menu in a new system, and that takes hours and hours and hours. So it's better if you can find a system that works great the first time and not have to keep redoing it. Let's see. I'm trying to think of other things. So when we first started the second shop, our best approach, and it was all just a sheer guess, was to take half the staff that we had that were like veterans, if you will, take half that staff and move them to the new shop, and then leave the other half at the first shop, and then add new to both. And that wasn't horrible.
I think that was a real only option, because you didn't want to start a new location with all brand new people. And you also don't want to take all of your best employees and put them at the new location, because then your first location goes downhill super quick.
Yeah.
So
I would think like kind of the emotional side of it was a little tough for some of the employees, because we were taking their work family and everyone that they knew and that they worked with every day, and we were splitting them 50-50. So it was almost like they were having to go get a new job. And I tried to find people that I knew would be kind of excited for a new opportunity and excited, even though the job was the same, it was almost like starting a whole brand new job, because the whole flow of working and having a lobby and what those tasks and duties are different than the strictly drive-through. And we had some employees that expressed some like concerns and some fears. They weren't sure like how things were going to go, how busy the new one was going to be compared to what they were used to with the first one. And that was actually a really tough kind of a tough season for us with our veteran staff. They had been there with us through all the first one, and they knew that our little tiny company that was going from 9 people was all of a sudden going to almost 40, because of, which sounds weird, and you think I don't quite understand that, but I guess we probably at that time had like 12 or 13, and then we went to about 40. And I've had some people, it's so funny, on YouTube who are like, why do you need 40 people to run 2 coffee shops? That doesn't make sense at all. Well, we run shifts, so 5 a.m. until 10 a.m., 10 a.m. until 2 p.m., 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. or something like that. But we also have to have multiple people on the floor during those shifts. So you have to have 3 to 4 people per shift in each one of the shifts. And then we also have to deal with things like people's schedules with school, people's schedules with extracurricular activities. A lot of our high school kids have sports and things we have to work around. We have daycare needs we have to work around. We have people who have their husbands' jobs, and then they have to pass the kids off. And so it is, if every person was available for every shift and willing to work 7 days a week, we would not need 40 people. But unfortunately, in order to make sure that we're keeping people at about 20 hours per week and dealing with all of their schedules and helping them so that they can have a job and deal with childcare or school or all those things, you do need more people to facilitate a schedule like that. So that's why we have to have so many. But anyways, it basically turned our company from this little kind of small, intimate, very family feel, which we still have a great family feel, but we had less turnover when we had just our little shop, because we only needed so many people. We only needed 12 people. And so if you think about it, if you have a town of 5,000 people and you only need 10 people, and you're getting constant applications, you can be really particular about who you choose to work for you, because you only need 10. And when I was working there, full time, we really only needed even less than that. But you could be really particular about who you hired. You could find the people with open availability. You could find the people who were willing to commit for a long time or wanted to, and you could be really selective. And then when all of a sudden you turn around the next day and now you need 35 to 40 people in order to make your schedules work, you can't be as selective. And so we do tend to have more turnover now that we have the 2 shops, just because we need that many more people. And we live in a military town. We constantly have military moves. We have people leaving for very long vacations, because in the military they get 30 days of vacation a year, and so tend to have that happen. COVID and just timing in general, we ended up having 5 pregnancies all at the same time, which was a little wild. So just kind of dealing with like them being gone and adjusting their schedules with all of that, and maternity leave. So it's just that has been a big challenge, and that's been a little bit hard for us to kind of adapt to, because back in the day it used to be that we never even ever put out that we were hiring, because it was almost overwhelming to get so many applications. And now we do have to publicly announce that we're hiring, because we're trying to find specific schedule needs that we need from people. So that's just been a little bit of a learning curve, I feel like, for us, going from 1 to 2 locations.
Yeah, the type of business, with a coffee shop or like a restaurant, we all kind of deal with the same type of thing. Like Bree said, it's kids graduate high school and they go off to college, or people move, there's just things are constantly changing. And our job isn't like you don't go get your master's degree and go to college and then go start at a coffee shop. The coffee shop's kind of like the restaurant industry. It's some people, it ends up being a career. They become a manager and they stay, and then there's the others that are just doing it part-time because they go to college and they want some part-time, they need money part-time and something that's flexible with their schedule. So it's always going to be a constant hiring, training business, and that's been hard for us too. At first, it was like the first person we ever, that we hired that quit, we were like, why would you quit?
It almost like hurts your feelings. It sounds really silly, because you get so attached to them, and then you kind of wonder, like, when they say, hey, I'm getting a new job and I'm going to go here, you feel like, what did we do wrong? Or was this not good enough? Or, I remember that feeling that you're talking about, where it felt like we did something wrong. But in reality, it's taken us now, when people are like, hey, headed off to college, we're like, thanks for a great 6 months, where you would think like 6 months, that's it, that's all you get people, and it's like, 6 months is actually pretty good. And it's just because it's a transition.
Longer, just life is different for every person, whether you have a kid or, there's so many things that change. But also I think with business ownership, when we went from 1 location to 2, with 1 location it was still very busy, because after work we still had work to do. And that's probably one of the hardest transitions for people who are used to working for someone else and then go into business ownership. It's not like you just go to work for a certain amount of hours a day and then you go home and you're like off work. That's how it used to be, right? When you work for someone, you're like, hey, it's 5 o'clock, like I'm off work, I'm going home.
No such thing.
When you own a business, especially like a coffee shop, you go to work, you get off work, and now it's like, okay, we got to get payroll ready, we got to update the books, we need to go get some of those supplies that didn't get delivered because they ran out, or it's constant. Oh, I need to go do the maintenance on the espresso machines tonight.
I need to plan out our social media schedule. I need to take pictures for our social media. I need to get applications. I need to look through those and call their references, and it's just like a constant. The admin side of things is intense.
Yeah, so when we went from 1 location to 2, we went from working in the shop 5 days a week to working in the shop hardly ever.
Yeah.
We're in there all the time, but we're restocking shelves, we're dealing with donation requests, we're dealing with complaints, we're dealing with hiring, we're dealing with training, we're dealing with updating the policy handbook. There's always something to be doing. And so that was a tough transition.
That was really tough. One of my goals actually in 2019, I wrote down my goals, and one of my goals was find a new normal. And I wrote that down because I knew that it was going to be a transition for us. I knew that what we had known for the past 5 years wasn't going to be the same. And I think one of the things that really dedicated business owners, and I know this isn't the same story for everyone, but it was at least our story and our journey, is that the coffee shop was our baby, especially mine, because making the drinks and stuff was my child, you know. And I am a perfectionist, I will say it. And so there's this part of me that when we had 2 shops, I no longer could be at both shops at both times. And I knew that that was going to be really tough on me, because I love to be able to make the drinks. I love that I know that when I handle a customer interaction, that it's going to be the best possible interaction, just because it's my business and it's like everything to me. I could be having the worst day of my life and I'm going to smile and you'll have no idea, because this is my baby, you know, and I pour so much love and energy into it, and he does too. But when we had 2 and we hired managers, we promoted people from within who were understanding of our culture and our policies and everything to the managers. The first few times that we had people complain about wait times or the service or my drinks are just not the way they used to be, oh, it broke me. It broke me, because I just have the tendency to be like, if I just was there, it would be fine, you know. And letting go of some of that stuff and delegating some of those tasks out, because physically it was impossible for me to be doing both at the same time. That was really, really tough, and that was a hard transition. But now that we're 2 years into it, you know, now things are much easier. Everyone knows their roles. Everyone knows what is expected. There was also a transition, and it's so funny. One of my mentees was going through this, and she messaged me a long message, and it was so sweet. I laughed, I will admit, because, oh my gosh, I've been there. And she goes, I don't know what to do, because I have started to take myself off the schedule a little bit, and when I go back in and work, everyone always says it's just not the same when you're not here. The drinks just aren't as good when you don't make them. Where have you been? I miss you in here all the time. I wish you were still here all the time. And I'm like, oh, girlfriend, if I could just hug you right now, and I just want to laugh, because I was there. That was probably the hardest thing for me, was because I was there. 7 days a week. I was the only employee. We had no other employees. And then we started to hire people. And then I started to kind of be able to back myself off the schedule. And now for the past year, we haven't necessarily been on shifts other than covering for people who are sick or on vacation or emergencies. Now we are just additional help that goes in and helps during really busy rushes, or like Casey said, like we're in there all the time restocking shelves or bringing paperwork for people or helping with training, but we're not necessarily on the shifts. I'm not there from 5 a.m. until 10 a.m. I'm more like pop in, help, see what I can do, leave, come back. And so there was a big transition where it was difficult for our customers to not see us there all the time. Mm-hmm. And that was hard. That hurt my heart more than anything, when people were like, I just miss seeing you. It's just not the same without you. And then the guilt really hit, and I was like, oh, I think I need to go back and work 5 days a week. And Casey was like, we can't. We're going to kill yourself, because we were trying to handle both shops, handle all of the admin side of everything, and that was tough. That was a tough transition.
Yeah, if you don't ever want to scale and you want to start a coffee shop, have one and keep it for 20 years or whatever, and you just want to work there with your employees, and you can do that.
You'll be more profitable if you work it and you're not paying people to be there.
Yeah, the downside, if you like to travel, if you like to take a week off and go do this or go do that, there's always going to be problems while you're gone. And the more the business relies on you, the less prepared it is when you're not there.
Absolutely.
Like you leave for a week and you're so used to taking care of everything and keeping it all perfect all the time. You take a week off and all those things aren't going to get done properly.
And it's not for a lack of effort on their part. This was another hard lesson. Yeah. You're so right. It's not because they don't care or they weren't trying or they didn't know. Well, that's the problem. They just didn't know, because it's not like you sit down and you say, okay, every single day I do X, Y, and Z. Even if you try your best to come up with that list, you're actually going to forget things, because as the owner, you just handle stuff and you don't think about it. So like Casey said, the first few times we ever took a trip and left our baby in the hands of other people, it was a little bit of a disaster, because we just didn't realize how many things we were taking care of without ever having to delegate it before. So yeah, that was a trip. And then you'd come back and you'd get frustrated because you're like, why did this fall apart? Why are we out of this? Why didn't anyone handle this? And they're like, we didn't know. And you're like, yeah.
And we love to travel. You know, someone's getting married, you want to leave for 4 or 5 days and go to their wedding or whatever. I mean, we got married after being in business for we weren't even in business for 2 years. We decided to go off and get married, and we left on a Friday and had to come back on a Sunday.
Yep.
Like we went
and
up,
we
got married,
Monday.
Came back because we didn't have enough employees, and we had to if anyone would have got sick, we would have been screwed, you know, because we only had 6 or 7 employees at that time.
Well, and that was back when we had our first building. So we actually had to still have someone help us take care of the tanks. We had to have someone help us with the dishes, and we had to, all of that stuff was more. And then it was our employees that we had at the time was our small little family, and so it kind of broke your heart that they all couldn't come with, because we got married in our hometown, which was a 6-hour drive. So it was actually kind of sad because we wanted everyone to come, but we couldn't, you know. So the people that helped us and our friends that usually would help us when we're out of town with some of those chores, they were in our wedding. So yeah, what a trip.
Yeah, it just
pains.
depends on where you're at in your life and what you want to do. If you're well, we never travel, we don't like taking more than a couple days off at a time, you know. I
would say whether or not you have kids is a big question you need to ask yourself, or you're wanting to start a family, or if you're, you have, I don't know. I think that if you have young children at home that, you're dealing with childcare, or if they're going to get sick and, you can't work around that, if you have to have help for that, or let's say you're wanting to start a family, that's kind of one of the scary things that we've talked about is you don't know with pregnancy what's going to happen if you have a high-risk pregnancy, if you are, bedridden or anything like that. And so that's a difficult kind of scary thing to think about when you're in those early stages where you don't have much help and you're kind of trying to figure out how are we going to make this work. So there's just so much to think about when it comes to all of that and how your life is going to work around it, but you get through.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, I feel like most people want to start their own business so they eventually, once they are established, have the time to do the things that they want to do. And you're not working for someone else, asking them permission all the time. I mean, it's the first 3 years, it would have been easier to work for someone else, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Because you just ask for the time off, but when you're gone on vacation, you don't worry about anything. When you own a business, it tells you when you're going to be at work. And oftentimes it's more hours and harder than it is working for someone else. But once you get it established and built up, and you can afford to have more employees, and your business is, doing 500% better than it was year one, and, things are just starting to really come together, and you're busy, and then, you're able to kind of get a taste of what that's like to be able to maybe take, some time off and understand that there's people there that are holding the fort down, while you're
I would say by the transition, I'm sorry, my allergies are awful. I just pulled in, there's beautiful trees everywhere, and my allergies instantly were haha, naughty. I would say that going from one shop to 2 shops actually gave us more freedom, but going from one shop to 2 shops gave us a lot more stress. Because there's double the chances for mistakes. There's double the chances for employees calling in, or things to break. There's double the issues. There's double the product that we need, and if product isn't delivered, now we have 2 shops needing the product because the supplier was out of it or whatever. So
twice the training.
Twice the training, twice the hiring. We need twice the people. So I would say it definitely doubled our stress. However, because we had 2 shops and I had to let go of some of that control, and we hired the managers to take over a lot of those duties that I was doing, it allows us a lot more freedom to not have to be in the shops all the time. And, even though, like Casey said, when you work a traditional 9-to-5 job and you get a vacation, you kind of just get to wave and go. Not every job, I understand that, doctors and stuff. One of our friends is a doctor, and we've been on vacation with her, and she's gotten phone calls constantly. But most of the time, traditionally, we had this experience where we went on a cruise with my family. We both worked traditional jobs. We went on the cruise, and I remember one of the things I was most excited about is that I was like, wow, I don't have cell phone service for a week, and this is kind of cool. Like, we were talking about how fun it was. Like,
it was great.
Oh my gosh, I turned off my phone when I got on the cruise. I actually just put it in the safe, and it was like actually one of the best weeks of my life because I was so disconnected. And I think something like major happened while we were there, like something in the world. I don't remember. I can't remember. It was years and years and years ago, but it was like, so we were like, wow, we had no idea. We were just in bliss on this cruise, like whatever. And then fast forward, we had the coffee shops. I think we were like 3 or 4 years into having the first shop, and we went on another cruise with our family, and we had to buy the cell phone package. We had our manager send us a daily recap, and we were writing back to her a daily recap. We had to pay like this extra couple $100 to be able to communicate because our stress was so high that we couldn't be there and we couldn't check in and we weren't available all the time for questions. That was pretty awful, actually, and it's still like that 7 years into this.
Yeah, when you go on vacation, you have your responsibilities are still going. So when you own a business like her photography company, when she's not photographing weddings, she's not making money.
Yeah.
But when she is, you know, when you have a coffee shop, like right now we're open and there's customers going there and things are happening and things could be going wrong. So it's like you think, well, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, an espresso machine could break, a pipe could break.
We've had the power go out. Yeah. Totally not in our control, but just like the town, a couple months ago, they were building a new house right behind one of our shops, and they broke the main water line and had to shut off all the water. We were out of business, like not because of us, not because of anything we did, but we just had to shut down all the espresso machines because we had no water. So like things do constantly
and your
come
employees
up.
Your employees only have so much knowledge. Like if the espresso machine were to break, and let's say you're on a 7-day vacation, it breaks on day 2, you can either A, choose to not have an espresso machine for all 5 days while you're gone, and then when you get back, you're gonna have to wait a couple more days, or you know, you're available to maybe tell them who to call, or you know, because some things don't need an espresso repair guy. Like what if they just blew a fuse, or
what just happened to us?
Yeah, it's like we don't need to call the repair guy out if you trip the breaker.
Yeah,
but they may not know what, you know, to look at that, or you know, there's so many things that can happen, and so yeah, when your vacations will never be the same when you own a business. That's for sure.
It is, but you don't ever have to ask for time off anymore, you know, so there's like pros and cons.
You make your time.
You do. Well, anyways, guys, I really hope that this video was just kind of fun. We, of course, didn't get to every single thing that we've learned and pros and cons, but I just thought it would be fun to just kind of share with you guys the growing pains and the things that changed for us when we went from one shop to 2 shops, and just kind of what that looked like and the process of it. And I'm sure we could talk for 4 more hours on this, but we just appreciate you guys being here and always watching these videos and interacting with them. We love to hear it and to see it. So thank you guys so much. And if you guys have more specific questions, especially about having 2 shops, please don't ever hesitate to write them below. And we will get to those and be sure and help you guys as much as possible.
Yeah, check out the other videos. There's a lot of good content that we've covered, you know, in other videos. And so, yeah, get caught up on the list of Rumble Strip Rambles.
Rumble Strip Rambles.
And eventually, I think we'll have like a more, you know, our desk and our chairs
we'll
and
try
microphones.
To be more professional, but no promises.
We're still doing it with the cell phone, so.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Thanks so much for being here.